Namaste and welcome to another session of insightful conversations at Oro Bharti. And, this is a forum through which we bring in conversations with individuals who have in their own ways giving new forms to the eternal spirit of India through whatever kind of work they take as part of their life's work. And today we have another very interesting domain of activity that we are exploring through this insightful conversations. That is travel. Culturally sensitive travel, I guess, if you could call it. So, they say, how do we know India? So there are many ways to know India. One of them is through learning, through knowing and understanding Indian thought, Indian philosophy, becoming Indian in the spirit. That is, of course, the best way to do that. Another is through learning about stories of India. And yet another way could be to travel through India, to learn and to experience the rich heritage, the rich diversity of India. So that's why it makes perfect sense to explore this area of culturally sensitive travel, heritage travel in our insightful conversations. And for that, today we have our guest, Sawani Shetye, with us. She's joining us from Goa. Welcome, Sawani, to
Namaste.
Namaste. And I will, at this point, invite Ram, my colleague from Oro Bharti, to introduce Sawani, and then we'll get into our session. So, Ram, just give us a brief introduction about Sawani.
Thank you, Bilaji. It's a pleasure to invite Sawani. Sawani Shetye has a master's degree in ancient Indian history and culture and archaeology from Deccan College, Pune. She is passionate about facilitating history and cultural awareness, and with this view, she founded Bhumiji Heritage Consultancy. She also did additional studies in archaeology of Buddhism and also culture-related areas, and has conducted courses and heritage-related workshops for students at schools and colleges in Goa. Sawani also has deep interest in Indian temple architecture and Indian art in general. Presented her research on Kavi art of Goa and Karnataka. She has recently started making informative videos with an aim to reach younger generations of India and the world to help them know a bit more about the depth of the temple architecture and its iconography. And she is currently also working as a curator at Exclamations Goa, a venture that helps travelers explore Goa beyond the beaches. Yes, over to you, Bilaji.
Thank you, Ram. So I should also add here that Sawani was part of a course a couple of years ago that we had facilitated on Indian culture, exploring Indian culture and self-development in the light of Sri Aurobindo. And also I had a privilege of meeting with her a couple of times, and you did a custom heritage trail for us when we visited Goa a couple of years ago. So it's really a pleasure to have you join us, Sawani. So let me begin with our first question, with your background in history and archaeology. So how did you get into exploring much deeply the history and the cultural heritage of Goa? Is it just because that's your native place, or did you have some other interests and motivations in mind when you started digging deeper into Goan history and cultural heritage?
To the best I remember, I think this was my favorite topic to read, and since my childhood days, I remember reading about different books on history and folklore, folk studies, even in my summer vacations. And my father had this very good habit. Wherever we would travel, he would make us find that place on map read about it. And he would always have one, offbeat kind of a place where he would take us and tell us the story or legend or whatever that he knew through his readings. And that's how I got interested into it. And if I try to recollect things well, I remember me liking going to, folklore festivals, listening and reading about historical stories. And one thing is, of course, my parents, like especially my father, who had a huge role in this. And second was my school. So my school was RSS run school. I mean, not completely RSS run, but people in the school were most of RSS background. So that's where they, our house names, school house names were not red or yellow like that. We had school house names named after freedom fighters of India. So I think till primary school, it was freedom fighters of Goa, and fifth standard onwards, it was freedom fighters of India. So that's how then we would read up, and they would change, for different competitions. It would be, we would have fancy dress competitions for unknown freedom fighters like that. So that's how I got interested. I mean, it's not compulsory that every child would get interested into it, but I liked it. So I started reading more about it. Yeah. And then about Goa being specific, when I started reading more and more about Goa, I started understanding it's much more beyond what is portrayed. And you really feel that when you look at Indian history and people look at it just as a land of snake charmers. And when people look at Goa, they only think this is a place for drugs, booze, and, just a place to go party. Most people even consider Goa as this is Las Vegas of India. And you feel like you have that something in your no, this is not the Las Vegas. We are not just one place which has only casinos, and that's not what we do. So that's how I started getting much deeper into it.
Yes. So you see, what you just said is about the freedom fighters, how you were exposed in your schools. So starting with freedom fighters of Goa and then freedom fighters of India. This is exactly in line of what Sri Aurobindo calls as his third principle of true teaching, from near to far. You start exposing students, young minds, to what is near to them, and whether it's a study of history. So on the other hand, when you are a student of history, especially in high school and college, you are given this big picture of Indian history and all these localized regional histories that are so diverse in nature. So Indian freedom movement is one part, and then Goa's history is very different about Goa's freedom movement. Goa's colonial experience is very different. So as a student of history, I mean, were you exposed to both of these things in your formal education, or was it coming out from your own initiative? Your study into
one was major part, I would say, my own initiative, or people who I was lucky to get in contact with. But school, as in what we speak, like formally, we had just one small booklet of Goa till I did my 10th standard. And most teachers, unfortunately, not in the other school that I was, where everything was more India specific, and people like talking about India and Goa and its culture. But I have seen that many other schools, the teacher just tell you this is just one booklet about history of Goa. It's not even important for your board exams. Don't even focus much on it. So that is also one, reality check that we have in Goa. And for my graduation, since my topic was, I did my bachelor's in history, so I had to learn about history of Goa in detail. That was part of my formal education.
Okay, good. So from your formal education in history and archaeology, what led you to start this boomage consultancy work on heritage? And I mean, how did this life in your life's work, the idea for taking up this work as your life's work, come to you, and that you want to devote yourself to? I mean, now that you know the kind of Goa, more about this kind of Goa that you wanted others to know. So what was that transition like for you?
So when I studied history, and the basic difference in studying history and studying archaeology is that history is, you mostly go by narrative, whichever is written by people. So which is like one 2D things. And when you do archaeology, it comes in 3D. It's about minute details of doing it all practically. Like you need to have a justification, something that you can touch and feel for everything, or at least through certain, just oral sources, just narrative is not enough. So then it becomes more interesting, and the it kind of widened my perspective in seeing history as just history about rulers and kings and their battles and everything. So that's where I realized most people hate studying history, because you have to mug up the dates, names. Sometimes the names don't even make sense to you. And as a school student, though I have liked history, one day before the exams, even I have done the same. Why did they even name people with same names? Like that kind of a thing. And remembering the dates and everything. But archaeology is not only about the royals; it's also about the common people. Something as common as a common man's pottery, something as common as the plates and cups in their house. So I came across some example, like I'll give you. When we study about Harappan civilization, if there is any site that we find, and then a lot of pottery that is recovered, based on the kind of fragments we get, you can arrive at conclusion. Like in Haryana, you get more of plates, and in places like Gujarat, and Maharashtra, you get more of bowls, because Haryana is more roti based, and Gujarat and Maharashtra is more curry based. So this is not the final observation as such, but these are certain small things that you can jump to, and then it becomes interesting. So that's how I thought, it's not going to make a huge difference in people's life to know a date, which year was this built. They know it roughly in the timeline, it's fine. But like it happened in the 1960, you can't write it wrong in exams, but for a common folk, just knowing the date, knowing the name is not going to make any difference to their life. What they have to understand is the perspective, why this happened, why did people behave in a certain way, why did they use certain symbol, why did they react to it in a certain way and not in the other way. So all these things, if told as stories, they will start connecting with it. So, and I'm a very talkative person and I like traveling. So I thought, instead of going into, doing more research at the moment, let's, there are so many stalwarts who have done in, lot of research about India, but there's a huge missing link between the people of India and the research that is about India. So let me try to put it through storytelling and put it across people. So that, and basically, like, this is what I like doing. Like, I would be free guide if I'm traveling I was at Ajanta, and there was a child asking his parent, why is this some one sculpture in a different way. So I would volunteer to explain. I really like doing it. But starting it as a venture as such, like registering it as a venture, happened when many people started looking on Goa as just as a party place, and that used to hurt. So I never had plans of starting a travel venture, because I don't come from a business background as such. So I started a Sunday tours for Goan local people. So at least they should know their background, what is there in their backyard. So if they have guests, then they can tell about Goa in much better way. But that's how it started. From there it became like a proper tourist place.
I was muted. Ram, do you have any questions at this point about Sawani's work?
Yes. Whatever I was listening from you, like, it's really, really inspiring. I'm really happy that about the work that you're doing. And when you're saying that, first of all, you wanted to create this awareness with the local people. So how was their response? Like, not even the students or even the elders, like whoever you were trying to create awareness for the local people, how was their response? Were they also inspired like me, listening about their own local place?
So I could see the response in two ways. first trail that I did, I used to do it initially for school students, like the teachers would invite, asking for a lecture series and then take them to different places. So then I would put those photos on, say, Facebook or WhatsApp stories, and people started asking, where are you traveling? Where is this? So I would say this is in Goa, and most people, like, they are born and brought up in Goa, like that's last generation, many generations have been in Goa. They were like, but we never knew where, like this being in Goa. Can you take us there someday? So then I decided maybe one day I will keep a trail which is open for all, and people can pay based on, like a certain, like a nominal amount. And I did that trail and I got a huge response of around 28 people. Because for trails like this you can't take a huge batch, because then there can't be any interaction, it just becomes a picnic. So we had to stop at, I think, 25 to 28, and from there it was more like a snowball. And I never had to then they started posting on their Facebook, and people started asking, can you do one more trail like that? And one response was appreciation that I got. And many people, like especially elders, they said, we lived here, like I lived from this heritage monument at least, say, around 15 kilometers or 20, but I never knew. Maybe they had been there but they didn't know the idea of studying it or knowing the importance of it. So that was one. And also people started helping financially in terms of recommending me as a, as a venture. Whenever they had guests or whenever official guests came to their companies or organizations, they arranged for a trip. So I think when you start, like I always put it this way, if you want to encourage things in India, it has to be financially viable. Because I have seen this in, like, it's we, for many people, including, say, artisans. So we can't just go click photos and clap and say keep doing this unless their ends are met. Same with somebody who just out of college. So maybe for a month or two or maybe 6 months you will do it for free of cost. But after a while, if it's not financially viable, you lose the whole patience. So people right from the day one, they started making it like a, like encouraging me through financially, also like recommending it as a business and paying and all that. So that was very, very important.
Yeah, that's good. It tells me that there is also this, if given the right opportunity, there is this thirst in people to know what is in their backyard and the significance of that for their own past, present, and future generations. So this is very good, very encouraging to know. What about especially the younger crowd in Goa, the younger generation, because what you were just saying, they have also been exposed to the same idea about Goa being a party place, and that's what. So what was their, especially teens, I'm interested in to know, like, youngsters, 20s, in their 20s, who were probably your age, how did they respond to this idea that, yes, there is Goa much more to Goa than just being a party place?
So most of them, they liked this idea, but it was been a learning process for me also, where I also had to adjust it to their taste. So initially, when I came from very academic background, I was like, like some of the kids, they would just go, like when you take school students and all, or I've taken college students. I used to teach as a visiting faculty in certain colleges. So students go there, and then after a point, they lose their interest out of it, and they just want to click photographs and, have a fun mood. So then I learned I have to tone it down. If the cause that they have to know about this has to reach out to them. I can't come from a complete academic background and say, you have to respect this and you have to listen to everything that I say. And so I kind of combined it with certain things where they will like, maybe like having a water body, something like, okay, it has to be a balance of everything. So at the end, like to get them into the whole zone, you have to tone it down and compromise and adjust to their taste also. Started telling them in comparisons of today's society. So when they could establish the link between past and present, and how like certain things of past help you understand certain things of present, like for say I gave examples of Samudragupta's Prashasti in terms of business administration of today. So then they started, okay, feelings a little bit. Once their ears are like, started standing, then you know that they're getting interested. But if you directly start with there was a Gupta empire, and then they are just, they don't have patience. And with Instagram and everything, the attention span is also gone. And the best way is to combine with a good food. So at least they don't completely call you out as a boring thing to do. So, and maybe, initially my first trail was very, very serious and something. So now it's a combination of having certain things which are Instagrammable, certain things which are knowledge based. So if you can't give them like 100% of what you want to give them, you have to leave them with a taste of so that they, their eyes are open to look for it the next time. So I have got response from many, like even parents of young kids, like say in 9th grade, 10th, that the next time they go to any place, they like to visit a museum or they wait. When I made it like history is not, I'm not going to tell you any dates, names, nothing of it. It's just going to be stories. Then they got interested into it.
This is so interesting, because you're not just talking about how travel can be educational, but also how history should be taught. A very living experience of places and what is relevant to their particular taste at that time. So let's move to your other interest about temples, and specifically about again, we are talking about diversity of histories in India. So the temples of Goa. So tell us a little bit about what is unique about the temples of Goa, the way you have explored and studied them. And I can certainly vouch that, having visited several temples, thanks to your, recommendations. And so this is really one part of Indian architecture that, which is, again, not generally talked about.
Yes.
When we talk about it.
So temples of Goa is the story of Phoenix. So when you go to any temple in Goa, most of the times they look grand, they're all, like bright colors, and it's different than the temples that you will see in other parts of India. Most temples, say right from Tanjavur to Ellora to Khajuraho, they're unicolor and mostly in stone. Like 80% of the ancient grand temples are in stone. And the ones in Goa are, they're colored, they're, they're laterite ones, and they're painted. So like Mangeshi, if you see, it's blue in color. Others will be yellow. Sometimes it might be like bright orange also. So people like it for aesthetics also, because on a green background, there's a pond there, and people like it that way. But there's a huge history of why the temples are the way they are. There's no specific architecture as a Goan architecture. You will see a dome there, you will see Portuguese style there, you will see certain Islamic influences there, you will also see certain old style of Indian temple architecture. So for example, when we study in archaeology like temple architecture of Kalingas, all the temples, at least 98% would be same. They are from the same block. Or temple style of Chalukyas will have a certain things, or Hoysalas will have, just with one fragment you can make out, okay, this is the Hoysala temple. There are no hard and fast rule like that for a Goan temple, because they're all a matter of they're all refugee temples. So now when you go there, you don't even realize that these temple at one point of time came there as a refugee. So that's why I call it as a story of Phoenix, because if you see the Zuari River, where India is one of the biggest bridges coming now, which connects North and South Goa, it's just the river, if you travel there from a ferry, the distance by time is 10 to 15 minutes. And at one point of time, this side is Portuguese India and this side is the actual Goa India. So, and Portuguese started destroying this temple as part of Inquisition. So whenever they knew, okay, our next village is destroyed, the next would be my village too. So the ancestors of ours took the temple murti or whatever they could find and left the place, because only option there they had was either to convert to Christianity or or death, or you live life of a beggar in that place. And at that time, when land was their everything, there's no cash, there's hardly anybody would have gold or whatever they could find, they left with that, and to safeguard their dharma. And they crossed the river, they went to the other side. And this interesting part here, it's Adil Shah, a Muslim ruler whose dynasty otherwise have destroyed temples, gave shelter to this temple, because Goa for him was a part of just economic expansion, and he had no plans of settling there and having his cultural hegemony there. So his chieftains told him, like, you have already lost a part of your empire to Portuguese. You don't want to lose any further, so you give them their like a safeguard here. So many Goans, many people from Goa went to all the way to Maharashtra, till Mumbai, till even Madhya Pradesh also, and some went till in Karnataka and right till Kerala. So these people, like for example, if you go to Ponda town, there are huge grand temples every half a kilometer or 1 kilometer. It's called a temple town, and people, sometimes tourists wonder why is it so in every kilometer there's a huge temple. So these all temples came as refuges. So there's example of Sateri Marsa Narayani. So Sateri gave Marsa a place to stay with her. So Sateri was a small village deity who allowed the people who traveled with Murti of Marsa Narayani to settle there. Like in Mangeshi, Mangesh came from some other place called Kortalim. So now it is like most of people have forgotten their original place is somewhere else, and they have come there as refugees. But with time, with dedication, they have rebuilt it in such a way. Like Shantadurga of Kavane, if you go there during Mahapanchami, there are 5 golden murtis of the deity, and all in gold. The murti itself is in gold, and they have all the alankar, and there is Annachatra running there and everything. So they have, they've recovered it to a huge extent of grandeur. And here I want to mention 2 people who, the Saraswat community, they had, there was one person called Naroram Rege. So he was working with the Peshwas as accountant and bureaucrats basically. So one day he helped them regain their finances and in strategies and everything with after the loss in Panipat, or like they were facing loss in certain things. So he helped them. So Shahu Chhatrapati asked him for a gift. You could ask for any bonus basically. He could have asked for any maybe in jewelry or any place or anything for himself. So he said, my Kuladevi, my deity does not have a proper place for her temple. Can you help me rebuild it? So Shahu Chhatrapati helped him rebuild it, and the village was given as a text to the temple. The same way Mallarao Suktankar asked it for Mangeshi. So right from complete destruction and survival, you don't know if you would even survive. You have to cross the river in the night time, keeping these murtis in hiding, and then rebuilding it to an extent that it is today. It's a huge story. But unfortunately, most people, when we go there, it's not told. That pain is not felt, because it now it looks so nice and glamorous and aesthetically all good, that this story, that connection is lost somewhere. Even many people who have been visiting these temples for years, they're devotees, but they knew it is like shifted. And kids of today feel it, okay, migration, like we would stay in Bangalore first, then my father got transferred to Pune, so I now stay in Pune. The kids of today, like 7 years old, kind of think of that migration in this way.
Just listening to you just gave me goosebumps. Like, I'm trying to visualize what those people went through when they crossed the river in the middle of the night, holding deities close to their hearts, and what the kind of love and devotion that is there. So, and you're right. I mean, it's kind of unfortunate, really unfortunate, that we are not exposed to this kind of tragic history that is part of our stories in that sense. So I'm guessing when you take people on these trails through these some of these temples, you talk about it, and how what do you see, like, in their eyes? And
so one example I told you of the kids not even realizing that pain of migration is I realized when I was talking to, when maybe families travel with their kids, they're like, acha, migration hua tha, like, so then it's a lesson for me to improve my storytelling in a way that it shouldn't be too much for them to take it, but they should understand the gist of it. So then 1 or 2 trails I did that we went to the original location of Shantadurga Kaure, where it's just one huge tree and there's just one small, like a what we call a small shrine. We call it a Ghumti in Goa. And there's a photo of Shantadurga. It's a protected site by archaeology department, and people light a lamp there. So that was one way. And many people, even though who are Goans, it's like now Goa is such a peaceful place. There is harmony and everything. So that's why this whole history of wars, this whole history of so what we call in Goa, the history is basically in air. The problem is there's nothing to show. It's not grand as you would see otherwise. Like Chittorgarh, when you go, the fort is such huge and grand. You get the goosebumps even before somebody tells you the story of the Johar. You can feel the history there. When you go to Raigad, you can feel the history there just by looking at it. You can feel that sense of time, there. But in Goa, it feels more like a picnic place. That's, I think, also a part of, like, when you go to any fort in Goa, you never would feel that there must have been a war here. Like Agwa, the Reshmagus was a place actually for prisoners. But the view and everything is so beautiful. There's a river meeting the sea there. Nobody would actually go to the zone of this could have been a place for a prisoner, and this place has heard the cries of, people. They were just put in there for a simple crime of saying Jai Hind in public for 2 years, 3 years, like that. And their aspiration, they're not felt there because the whole aesthetics is, taking over the mind. So it's a kind of a bit of challenge, to get people to a zone of taking them to past at that moment, because it's very easy to get carried away by the whole setting there.
Yeah. Ram, I've been talking too much. So Ram, do you?
Yeah. So you have been telling your experience of how today's kids look at migration, and how when we go to this fort, we are overtaken by the beauty of the nature. So how do you see the future of this tourism programs? How do you feel that you can bring in this sensitivity in the people to make them aware of their own place?
One is continuous storytelling, but sometimes with like specific to kids of today's generation, like those who are less than age of 20 at this moment. So for them, just storytelling is not enough, because right from the age of their infant days, they've got used to 3D so much. They've got used to multimedia. Most of them, just if you tell them just the stories, they need something to see. They need something to feel. They need a music. They need everything, because that's how they've grown. Right? So the attention span is also hampered. So one thing is making the museum more, or the storytelling more interactive. Something that keeps them into it. Like it could be in a form of a game or something. Because, however, like we try to avoid the reality. That's how it is. That they want to be part of it, or else they will not understand what is happening. At least most of them, unless they are particularly interested by on their own. So one way is like we have a lot of digital media to help now. Maybe stories like we had done, the Chief Minister of Goa, with him, we had done a project on 18 June, which is Goa Revolutionary Day. We had done a small video of 20 minutes, which was in caricature format, because we don't have most photographs of the historical Goa freedom struggle. There are very few photographs, and they're all in black and white. So we had done animated stories. So that was so shown to different schools, and that got students interested. At least they, I don't remember if they liked it, they watched it, but it held their attention for 20 minutes. And I think to start with, that is also, I would call it as an achievement, because they did watch it on phone for 20 minutes on freedom struggle. So in because it was in an animated way, there was storytelling to it. So as I said, we have to tone down and give them what the customer likes, So that's like a customer here is not in the customer sense, but like you have to simplify. Like there's a demand, it has to be supplied. I would want to mention here, like just recently I've ordered one game from a brand called Mavada. So Mavada is a soldier of Shivaji Maharaj. So they are called as Mavadas. So the Mavada game, or so the brand is called Mavada, and you have to build. It's a subsidy type, and you have to build Swarajya. And it's like a number of like how we play in Ludo, by 5 you move 5 places ahead. Then there's a snake. So snake is you lose a fort, and there are references of actual forts of Shivaji Maharaj based on actual history, and you move with the timeline. You start from the first fort Shivaji. He took an oath of building Swarajya at the age of 16. So I think you start from that age and you have to build Swarajya. And at points, the snake is you're losing your Senapatis. So Shivaji Maharaj lost Tanaji Malesure. So you actually feel that as a part of that game. So I am kind of on a speed to gift this game to, it's in Marathi and English. So I've been gifting it to teenagers whom I know in my, so I've given it to 1 or 2 just to see what is their reaction. And when the kids play in colonies and all that, it's like they're getting interested into it. So if we'll have to up our game and, make it more easier and interesting for them. Just in today's morning, I got suggestion of there's a memory game. Like in childhood, we used to have this memory game of 2 cards, which would be like say flower, and you open, you find the other one. There's one memory game of Maruti. So it's called Maruti Krida, and there are shlokas, and Maruti is in animated format there. So like Vanara Yutam Mukyam, and there's you have to shout it loud. It's a game like that, and then you have to do like the down charades. So and there's a meaning of what is Vanara Yutam Mukyam, and it's all in a caricature format. So kids also would get interested into it.
Excellent. Yeah, I would love to get my hands on that game with the, yeah. Interestingly, this conversation is going to be part of the issue that has the theme of courage. So this game with the Shivaji's soldier fits, it's really interesting that you mentioned this. So now that you've started making these short little interesting videos on temple architecture, the ones that I've seen are about the temples in Karnataka. Yes, so you plan to do for temples in Goa as well?
Yes. So this will be done through Exclamations Goa. The temples in Karnataka was actually, my husband made me do it on gunpoint.
Okay.
Like, why should I only listen to so many things all alone? So you should do a video, and trails also had stopped because of COVID. So I never had the idea of just doing Goa-based trails. It was Goa, and my goal was not travel as in fun travel. It was making history simple through travel. Yes. The whole idea was doing trails outside of Goa also, because many Goans, they have the budget to travel worldwide, but they've not heard, even there are many people I know who have traveled around 27, 28 countries, but they've never heard of Tanjavur. And when I told them about the temple, I showed them the pictures, they were really interested. So there's always that, missing link. So I wanted to do trails like taking them to Ellora, taking them to Tanjavur, because the whole problem there is places like, say, in villages of India, they need business for them to survive and respect their own heritage. So once this is something that I learned from KK Mohammadji when he had come to our college for a lecture. He's the one who worked on Ram Janmabhoomi. So he had said a place like, say, he worked in Humayun ka Maqbara, where he was the ASI head. And he also worked on different places in Bhopal. So the one thing that he did was making the community around it dependent on the monument. It could be through a form of a guide. It could be through a form of like, say, if it's a Mughal architecture. So you make diaries with the jali pattern or an envelope with the jali pattern. Where if it's a Buddhist monument, you do certain things like, stamps or rangoli ideas with Buddhist motifs. So that's how the local ladies of there will get their money based on, because the problem here is poverty and, everybody wants to, like have a comfortable life. So why not mix this both? So he started with that. And Goa is one place which is fortunately very much prosperous, and people do have money to travel. So instead of spending it in another foreign country, and there's nothing new that they explore, why not make them spend it in their own country? So you are actually linking to, solving two problems at one go.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is the thing. Your experiences with Goa, but I think what I have seen elsewhere also, like, same people who have money, when they plan their vacation, it's always looking for a destination outside India. So yes.
One reason for this also could be the whole experience around it. Like now it's changing since Swachh Bharat. There is Saksham Bharat, which is made, like all these heritage places are being made friendly for the Divyang, and the guides coming in and everything. Like I remember a few years ago going to Badami, and you have people there defecating in the open. You have pigs running there. So even if you have to recommend someone who has the budget of traveling in Germany, so if he has money to spend, why not give them infrastructure to spend it in India? So
yes.
That is also one part of the whole larger picture.
Yes. Now, see, Ram, as a local Tamilian, may have a different view of this. But, okay, last 2 years, I haven't been doing much traveling. But whatever travel I have done in Tamil Nadu, I think my first visit to Gangaikonda Cholapuram also, I felt the same thing. I mean, here you have this huge, beautiful temple, and you can spend hours exploring that. But there wasn't even a washroom facility. And, or even closer to us is Pichavaram, the mangroves. There is hardly any infrastructure, not even a proper cup of coffee you can have, so it's this certain things we have to up our game if we want to.
It's basically more like chicken and egg, which is earlier.
Yes.
Somewhere it has to start maybe with people like us who would be okay even if there's no washroom. We will still do it.
Yes.
And then once they see that customers are coming, there is market there, there's demand there. Maybe then, because that's how it has started happening in Goa. Like I started doing food. Like there was always a strict rule in all of my trails that we will never take packed food, and the food always would be at local homes. So now with one home, 2-3 more homes are also ready. Like, okay, this can be worked out as a part. So,
and I can vouch for the wonderful Goan food we had there. And we had made a request that, it be vegetarian, and it was just marvelous. Ram, do you have a question? Because I have one question brewing up in my mind, which was not we didn't discuss it, but you go ahead if you have something.
No, you please go ahead with this proving thing, and then I'll continue.
There is one other thing that I think I would like to have it on record here. We talked about what is unique about temples of Goa, and I would also like our viewers to have a sense of about the Tulsi that we see in every home in Goa, and the significance of the Tulsi plant just outside of Goa. So if you can just speak a little bit about the history behind that.
So in like most of the Hindu homes in Goa, Maharashtra, Karnataka, there's a small Tulsi Vrindavan outside of their homes. In Goa, you have it more elaborated. It's like a huge altar, and sometimes it's just like people really show their creativity. Like my neighbor's house, it's Krishna standing with a cow licking his feet, and at his back is the Tulsi ka, it's a planter. And then there are some houses which have like elephants holding that planter, things like that. So people show like extreme level of creativity. And villages, when there is Tulsi Vivaha, it's as good as having a wedding in the house. And the kids will paint the Tulsi, and it's like somebody in your house, like a living person, is getting married. And one thing interesting with that we can see is, like, when people were converted in Goa from Hinduism to Christianity, all of a sudden you can't take out one part of their existence. And the Tulsi was whole part of Hindu existence, like right from watering Tulsi in the early in the morning before doing the puja, to having Tulsi for all the religious needs, to medical needs. And certainly, like, suppose like one part of whole architecture, it's not just random planter there. No, it's like people connect with it. Like, as I told you, when we grew up as kids, having Tulsi Vivah was as good as having somebody else, or like your own sister's wedding in the house. So if something as close as that existence is taken away, you feel there's a huge like something that's missing, kind of. So they asked the church if that could be replaced with the cross. So Hindu homes in Goa, you will see a huge Tulsi, and the Catholic homes, you will see a huge cross outside. This, I don't think people will see outside of India anywhere.
Outside of Goa, you mean?
Yes, outside of Goa, I think now they are there in other parts of Karnataka also, because of Goa influence. But from where the Christianity actually began, in those places, or where it is like even the state religion, you will not see altars outside each house. They may be inside, but not outside, like the way we have Tulsi.
Yes. And it's really like you're saying, I mean, some of the designs are so elaborate. I think when I was there, I clicked several pictures, and there's a particular museum where they have a whole huge poster of this. I forget.
Houses of Goa.
Houses of Goa. Houses of Goa. Yes. The whole range of planters there for the Tulsi Vrindavan. Yes. Ram, you go ahead if you have any more questions.
Yeah, so I always have this question when it comes to the area of history. So now we were saying about the story behind the Tulsi thing, and even the cross, and you were telling about this the story of migration, all these things. So when you happen to know about all these things about your own living place, what is the change that comes within? Either something about the life itself, or the way we perceive our living place. So knowing, in short, knowing one's own history, how does it influence one's life? And especially for a place like Goa, which I haven't visited Goa, so I have a feeling that even many people living in Goa would be seeing it as a place of, like, like how we were saying, Las Vegas of India. So being in such a context, how about knowing knowing their history will bring in some, what are the kind of changes that can happen in one's life? Or
for this, I'll start with giving example of pan India level. How knowing history changed, like shaped the future in so many ways. First one was finding of, say, Harappan civilization. Before that, the context of India was just you were barbaric, and then Britishers came and we civilized you. That was first thing. Then finding the Devanam Priyadarshi, like when they found out about Ashoka, the whole Buddhism, Ashoka, Samrat Ashok and his empire, and having a civilized empire and everything, that history came out. And this was going parallel to the Indian freedom struggle. The freedom struggle was just coming, it was just blooming at that time. And this gave as a big boost to it. Like, okay, it became, like, because you always need something to hold on to, right? And you like your place. Like many people in Goa, they know we are not the Las Vegas. This is not what Goa is. But if somebody asks you, okay, then what is Goa? You don't know you can't explain it. if somebody asks you why do you really love your mother, you don't have any explanation in terms of okay, point one, point two. So people would go speechless. So same thing like what happened with India, same thing when it started happening with now it has started happening with Goa also. When you realize there are many people like Sudhatai Joshi, whose name I would like to take, who was put in prison for just giving a speech that started with Jai Hind. And she spoke about Goa being part of India. Then there is one boy, 26-year-old Balaraya Mapari, who was dragged to a jeep because he did not reveal the names of other Krantikaris. Then other places, like I started telling the stories of freedom struggle as part of stories to kids. So there is one boy of when India got its independence in 1947. For 14 long years, there was no Goa was still part of Portuguese rule, and many people from different parts of India came to liberate Goa. Right from Punjab to Jharkhand to Assam to Odisha and down south from Tamil Nadu to Kerala, different parts, and who had no gains, no connections. It's not like nobody would have, half of the people, nobody knows their names. And they came to Goa in number of thousands. So there is one boy whose name that we know. His name was Karnal Singh Banipal, a 23, 24-year-old boy from Punjab. And there was a call given to different parts of India, come to liberate Goa as it's part of India. And he came all the way from Punjab, and police were doing Lati charge on Sahodra Devi, who's a veteran freedom fighter who contributed to Indian freedom struggle also. So he was that young Punjabi, you can imagine, and he came, uspe kyun Lati chala rahe ho, like on a lady. You don't have a right to hit a lady like that. So he came to block it, and Portuguese just ceased-fired on him, and they killed him right in that one shot. So when stories like these are told to people, you actually feel that okay, and this huge, like that's happening all over India now. This is Goa. This only belongs to Goans. So the other people who are coming here they're outsiders. That locals versus outsiders is starting. Sometimes there are two sides to that coin, but then you feel okay, like somebody from Punjab who has nothing to gain from liberating Goa and who has no personal connection whatsoever. He doesn't even know a name of a village in Goa. He came all the way here and sacrificed his life for no reason, anything. And he is not known. Nobody has promised him any, compensation, nothing. And he's come all the way. That's when these stories are told to people, they really started feeling it. This is one part. They started feeling more towards the duty of their state. And secondly, most people always wanted to, they get angry when people say this is Goa was, civilized by the Portuguese and everything. Because they want to counter it, but they don't have facts to counter it. So when they are told, okay, there were Kadambas here, this was part, there were Agraharas, it was not like randomly they came here and nothing was here. So when all these facts are given, like my college teachers in archaeology said, archaeology is only about giving you facts. You have no right to even say a temple is beautiful. You just say this temple has this, and it's built by this. It's the person who's seeing it has the right to say it's beautiful or ugly. So you just present them the base for it. So that small change, like at least I have noted in some people. So at least with just many people used to look at Goa, kuch nahi hai there, the forts are so small and the caves, there's nothing. So nothing as in which is, I wouldn't judge it, because obviously when you see caves like Ellora, Ajanta and Badami, and when you see a cave in Goa, there's actually nothing there. There is no, like there's a Buddhist cave, which is a natural cave. There's no ornamentation, nothing. So people are like, "Arey kya kidhar leke aaye ho? Idhar kuch nahi hai." So and when you put it in context, why that one Buddhist cave, why this one image of Buddha is so important in studying history of Goa, they start understanding and respecting it in a different way.
I think this last point you said about respecting, that's very important. I mean, we have to respect our history, because only then, I think it's like again, that cyclical relation between knowledge and love. The more we know, the more we begin to fall in love with our history, our place, our country, our state, or that little town where we belong to. And the more we love, the more we want to know about it. So that way, I think you do a commendable job in making people sensitive and aware about the richness of the history. Certainly, I think when we had met in Delhi, I might have mentioned to you that I've always had resistance to visiting Goa, mostly because of this perception of beaches and this. And then when I finally visited 2 years ago, which I would like to do it again sometime, then maybe next, as COVID permitting. For I think 10, 12 days that I was there, we hardly went to any beach. We didn't really actually touch the water. I mean, we attended an event which was like a beach event, but it was more of the event kind of thing. There was no, because there was so much more to explore. So thanks to my awareness that came because of my interactions with you. So I think we might be coming close to that. I don't know, Ram, if you have any more questions. I do have one last question about something that Savni, you mentioned. But Ram, before, if you have anything more you would like to ask.
Yeah. So as I was saying, like this outsider like me, having this view of this as a destination for beach and party, and there is so much of inflow to Goa with this perception. Like, what are the negatives because of that? Like in preserving this archaeology and culture, and how can this be utilized in a positive way? What are your thoughts on that?
I think both has to coexist. Initially, I was also of that, you can't really, somebody staying, like if I go to Himachal and like I would definitely at least one day want to go and feel the snow. So somebody's coming all the way from Rajasthan and you tell them, "Are beach mein kuch nahi hai, it's just the water," because you have seen it right from like all your childhood. There's nothing that they will never, because they come here all the way to that movement of seeing the endless ocean or the sea and the waves coming off this. They really are mesmerized, and they're like it's something that they want to be there and want to do that, because I've had friends coming from Solapur and other places of Maharashtra which are like drought based, even if you can't say more like drought, but they're dry places, arid regions. So when they come and see the sea, it's like just the time at the beach, listening to the waves and everything, it's something you can't take away from them. So it has to be like a coexistence of both. And there's a huge lot of tourism based on that in Goa. Even if we try to make it as a part of hinterland tourism, you can't take away the beach is equal to Goa part of it. There are many factors to it, considering like there's a whole coastal line to both sides of India, like the east and the west, but I think eastern coastal line is little smaller, so it's not really safe to swim like it is in Goa. Plus the whole feeling of being there, at the shacks are there, the cleanliness, then the comfort for a tourist, all these places things matter from a tourist perspective. So it really, when I go to certain beaches now, which I've been in childhood, and I see all the shacks and people are selling different things, and I feel different. Like this was not the place which I visited in my childhood. So there are certain, like, but it's a part of that whole growth. Like you can't really take it away from it. And the economy of Goa depends on tourism, and like 90% of it comes here only for the beach part of Goa. You can't really take it out because so many actually people depend on it. But the negatives that come because of the irregularities of law, that is something that has to be taken because of the beach and everything. Everybody knows as a place, like we have seen this in airports where people will come with all the gungat, and by the time they are out of the flight, they will go change into shorts, and when they go back, they're going back with all their traditional attire. And my mother had gone to Kolhapur for one workshop sometime, and there was one lady who said, her dream was to come to Goa to wear a skirt. So I thought, why do you want to limit Goa to, just to wear a skirt? But she spoke it like it's her life goal. It's like it's a part of her bucket list. And for me, it may not be for even Goa. Anybody wearing a skirt or dress may not be, nobody will even look at you. It's just like normal thing. So I didn't realize it. But then for her, it is something that, people want to challenge. Okay, I want to do that kind of a feeling. I want to wear a skirt in Goa. I want to also be at a part of, so you can't, so that's one of the reasons that people like Goa, and it's something different than other places. It's what we call as like when you travel to certain areas which are Portuguese, like say Pondicherry, also the same thing. People feel like it's a mini Europe tour, and may try to ignore it as much, but it's true for a fact that people idealize, like somebody traveling to Rajasthan and maybe really having a good trip, but somebody traveling to Dubai or traveling to Europe and USA is like considered as somebody like a next to God in parts of, like in some parts of India. So it's like something that you can't really take it away. But
Yes.
what Modi ji always has done also, like what, if you notice, I read this article somewhere, he has started drawing a bigger line. So you can't eradicate something else. You can't just take it away because it's a system. If you take it away, it will only create chaos and nothing else until you replace with it. So you better draw a bigger line. So you come to Goa for a beach or holiday or a vacation, but also look at our temples. At least don't say like, Goa mein kaun temples mein jata hai. So that, at least if that is also reduced, it will be a huge thing.
Well said, well said. I mean, certainly, yeah, for Pondicherry also, okay, Goa, you go to feel the Portuguese culture, and here it's the French, the French town. This still called as the White Town, French architecture. That's how it is promoted. And then there is Sri Aurobindo Ashram also. And then there is Matri Mandir, 8 kilometers. So, yes. So, yes, those are, concerns. So let me come to this final question. Sri Aurobindo once said that the future belongs to the young, and the future of India, what is required is for the youth to have this inner courage, braveness, frankness, and a clear aspiration on which the future India can be built. And I see you as one of these youths who have really kind of carved out your own path in your life's work. And one of the things we didn't talk about in this one is the work that you're doing with your husband in the farm also, but maybe that will be another session at some point. So what advice or what kind of suggestion you would have for youngsters in India today who are looking something, for their career, for their professional work, not the 9-to-5 kind of job, but to kind of, carve out their own path, chart their own path in their life's work based on what they're passionate about, like you are, about making people aware of the history and the cultural heritage. So what would be your suggestion to them?
Okay, this is something I would really have to think on, but I wouldn't say it as a suggestion or an advice, but I would feel it should be more practical, something that solves one problem and makes this, like there's a huge lot of misconception about India in many ways, like tourism, heritage, history is one part of it, but there's huge misconceptions about India, and like so much where there's potential, but it is not like taken out enough. So if everybody starts taking one thing that they can do in their own permutations and combinations, so it will be a huge thing to get into and change the bigger picture. Because one thing starts falling in place, like what we spoke about tourism, like I mentioned about Tanjavur to so many people. So once many people say, at least 10 families from Goa start visiting that place, one place, it will bring some tourism economy there. somebody else who is working on maybe like one problem solving of building clean washrooms in that area. It is all finally all interlinking. So you just have to bring it all together in your own ways, and it will all start falling in its own place by its own.
Yeah. Well, certainly, every time I've had the pleasure of talking to you, meeting with you, it's always inspiring. And thank you so much, Sawani, for sharing your thoughts and spending this much time with us. Once travel starts much more, becomes much more easier, we'll meet again. Maybe you can also come to Pondicherry, spend some time exploring through your lens Pondicherry and do some trails here. So Ram, I don't know if you have any last thoughts or questions or anything, quick question or any last thoughts to share. But other than that, yeah.
I just felt what you were saying is true, like, sharing those quote and how I completely agree with your statement that Savani is like, living to that quote, and one word I can say is like inspiring to listen to you, and hearty wishes for all your future endeavors also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, certainly. Lots of good wishes for your work, all the works that you are doing, and we look forward to more of your videos on temple architecture and certainly temples of Goa. So thank you so much for coming, for accepting this invitation, and for engaging in this, giving a very broad understanding and, at the same time, many interesting details about the history, the uniqueness of Goan history. So thanks again, Sawani.
For hosting me, and I think that 1 minute silence at the beginning actually helped in many ways. Because I was like, I'd gone through the questions, but there was so much to say, and like I was trying to figure out. But then once you start with that silence, it's like there's a deeper connect that you don't have otherwise.
Yes, that's how we start. It's practice at the ashram, all kinds of work. It's a way for us to remember the mother who is the source of all inspiration, all creativity, and to offer the work to her. So thank you again, and namaste. All the best, Sawani. Thank you. Bye-bye.